Should you invest in the real estate now? If you turn on the news besides the pandemic, everyone is talking about the housing bubble. Experts are waiting that the housing market will crash in 2021. And as a piece of the advice, they bring the example of the 2008 crash that 2020 is following the exact same patterns, so that housing market should crash again next year. And this is pretty interesting because if we are in the bubble that will burst next year, it will present a golden opportunity for a lot of the people to jump in and make the fortune, because a housing bubble means that houses will be sold at the fractions of their real price once the bubble bursts. Imagine the 2100 home that you wanted to buy suddenly on the sale for the 70 or 80,000, and interest rates are so low that you can get it immediately if you can make the down payment. Don't That sounds like a golden opportunity. Everyone likes investing in real estate because for some weird reasons we believe that the real estate prices will always rise. However, we have even countless times that's not the case, and house price can actually drop. To figure out if investing in the real estate now is a good idea or not, we have to understand the few things. Do home prices always rise? How housing bubbles area create? And finally, when exactly the market will crash? Before we move on, I want to take a moment and thank our sponsor, Skillshare. If you want to learn how to analyze, compare it like the professional investors and find out if the certain companies is a good investing or not, you have to take these courses by Skillshare because it will teach you everything the professional investors use to value a company. And it is taught by the Businesses Casual, the YouTube channel you probably know. I have taken the courses in a short, animated, and worth your time. Skillshare is the online learning community for the creatives where millions comes together to take the next steps to their creative journey. Skillshare offers thousands of the inspiring classes for the creative and the curious people on topics including illustrations, design, photography, video, freelancing, and more. And all that for the less than $2 a month with the annual subscriptions. But because you guys are the best audience in the entire YouTube, the first 1000 people who click the link in my descriptions will get a free trio Skillshare Premium. By the way, you will be supporting the channel by the signing out Skillshare, and now let's get back to the video. The 2008 crash, the model of the housing bubbles. One of the tools the Fed has its disposal to control the economy is the interest rate. When the economy is rising too fast, the government interests and raises interest rates to stop the flow of the capital into the market so that the economy doesn't turn into the bubble. Because high interest rates means borrowing money becomes expensive, which means less people would borrow money, which will result in the less spendings and vice versa. That's known as the monetary policy. So back in 2000s, when the dot-com bubble burst, the stock market was almost $5 trillion of the market capitalization. The economy was in the recession, so the Fed lowered interest rates from around 3% to 2.5%, then to 2%, and all that way down a little to 1% of the. Eventually, everyone to borrow money for the spend it order to get back to the economy on its knees. And it worked. By 2003, the economy began recovering. By 2006, the stock market reached its pre-dot-com crash level. But how the interest rates means low rate to refund on government bond and interest to fixed deposit. It no longer made sense for the investors to buy government bonds or keep their pile of the cash. And banks, since inflation would slowly eat it away, especially when a few years ago they made unbelievable returns during the dot-com bubble. The S&P 500 rose by over 400% from the 1995 to 2000. So investors were looking for the new opportunity to save their rising investments, to throw their money at, and real estate seems like the great idea, but investors don't have the time to deal with the individual buyers, so financial institutions came with the brilliant idea. Since interest rates are so low, everyone was buying a house, the financial institutions works take the mortgage, bundle them together and sell them to investors in front of the shares. Their investments proved to be really great, but banks ran out of the financially responsible people to loan mortgage, but investors still wanted to buy these investments. So banks started to give in the subprime mortgage or mortgage to the people with the real low credit score. People didn't necessarily have enough income to keep making the mortgage payment. Why? Because they would take the mortgage bundle when together and sell them to investors. Low interest rates and rising homes prices keep attracting more and more investors. The reason why these investments appeared so seductive is because the investors argued that even if they would default on their loan, it's not a big deal. The bank can get back the house and sell it since home prices were rising. They would still make the profit. It seems like the perfect investment. So the banks gave mortgage to everyone. That inflated home prices to unbelievable heights. But at some point, one of the borrowers defaulted, so his home was put on the sale. Then the second one and the third. Soon there are so many homes on the sale, but not enough buyers, and home prices began to fall. When people saw that their $500,000 mortgage house is suddenly worth only $250,000, it stopped making sense for them to keep making mortgage payments. So they walked away from them. Now there are even more houses on the sale, driving home prices even lower. So banks were left with a lot of the worthless mortgage that no one wanted to buy. So they went bankrupt one after another. But how is this all related to the 2021 crash? Well, the government intervened and saved big banks in return that they would tried their regulations and won't randomly give mortgage users unless they have the high enough credit score and are able to make the more monthly payments. Or sometimes they did. In 2010, you would try to get a mortgage. The bank would require the endless numbers of the documents to prove that you're financially responsible and you have the stable job that will allow you to make mortgage payments on time. So home prices returned back to their pre-crisis level by 2012. The only reason the market would crash again is if house prices will start rising dramatically again and there won't be the demand to meet it. In the last 8 years, home prices did actually rise, but mortgages were no longer given to the irresponsible borrowers. In fact, in 2016, the Fed stepped in the raises interest rates from the 0.25 to 0.5 so that it won't turn into the bubble. By 2019, interest rates were 2.5%. Borrowing money became expensive, although the numbers of the mortgage dropped to a certain extent. But the demand was still there, so prices keep rising. COVID-19, the crisis that's supposed to crash the housing market when the pandemics stopped the economy, it was clear that the housing market is going to crash because overnight millions of the people lost their job, which means they won't be able to continue making their mortgage payments and default on their mortgage, which means that suddenly there are going to be too many houses in the market as it was back in 2008. So home prices will start falling, which means the housing market will crash. But that's we didn't take into account is that the Fed just recently went through a housing crash, so it knew how to stop it. First of all, the government distributed stimulus checks to help everyone to pay the bills. The government granted financial aid to the businesses who retained their employees, so most people could keep paying the bills, including their mortgage. And to steal the case, the government introduced the forbearance plan, which basically means you can put your mortgage payments on the hold until 2021. And that means that no one is going to default on their loans this year and by the next year. Vaccine is hopefully will be available and everyone will get back to work and keep making their monthly mortgage payments. But while you're in the middle of the pandemic, home prices are still rising. Remember at the beginning of the video, we talked about how the Fed lowers interest rates during recessions to help stimulate growth. Well, that's exactly what they did. The Fed lowered the rates to 0.25%, which made borrowing money more affordable, so the demand for houses rose while the supply didn't. Is the market overvalued? Probably, but it's definitely not a bubble. Once the 2020 roller coaster will end up and life will get back to normal, home prices may depreciate to what they really was. But that might not happen next year. Of course, if you take the individual cities like San Francisco, New York City, or the LA, home prices might be slightly more overvalued. But that's pretty much about it. So, is the good idea to invest in the real estate now? Probably no, since the market is slightly overvalued and corrections might happen next year on the other hand. Timing the market isn't a great idea either, especially the housing market, since house prices don't jump up and down like the stocks, so you might end up waiting for a few more years. And now it's your turn. What do you think? We are in the bubble? Will the home prices crash the next year? Let me know in the comment below. And this is for today. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up if you have enjoyed it. And if you are the new around here, smash the subscribe button and the bell besides it. Thanks for watching and until next time.